My name is Erin, and I'm the Business Development Director for Midland GIS Solutions. We're based out of northwest Missouri, right across the Iowa border. And that's Missouri, not Missouri. I can actually say it, so don't hold that against me too much. We're a full-service GIS firm. We do work all over the Midwest, from municipal data collection, custom programming, web-hosted solutions for GIS and asset management. And this morning I'm just kind of going to talk about some of that. And we have dedicated field service crews. We worked with towns from 300 all the way up to 100,000. Water, sewer, storm, electric. Have very experienced staff and utilities. So I work on a daily basis with public utility directors, wastewater superintendents, and kind of know some of your pains. Just kind of talk about that. Trying to get you to think this morning about GIS, how it applies to you in your town, regardless of the size and the shape your system's in. First thing that I want to talk about just real quick is some of the maps that you have. How many in the room, show of hands, would say that they have a GIS system that they can utilize on a daily basis and trust? Not a lot. I talk to people a lot, say, oh, we have GIS. And what they really have, they're not sure. So we try to really give you the options so you can understand what you have and what you don't have, because it may be something that's out of date, it may be something that you want updated. And the reason we always stress GIS so much is because everything you do is going to reflect how good your GIS system is. We have a lot of people that have the old map from 1984 that the engineer did last time, that they literally pick it up, it's going to fall apart. You can't really make decisions on where those manholes are with that paper map that's about ready to fall apart. You have a lot of challenges. I always like to put this stuff out there to get people think. Does any of this look familiar? Does any of this kind of, ooh, I remember that night, or there was 12 inches of snow on the ground and we were trying to find that broken water line. I'm not sure here down on the left how that got accomplished, but I like to bring it up just because you've come into a town and maybe 10 years before you were there, lots of things got paved over. Or we even talk to people that their water and sewer crew is separate from their street crew and they don't always work together good. So street crew, they'll pave over anything, and that makes it challenging to take care of your sewer water systems. A lot of people say, well, why start? Well, why do we need GIS for asset management? We know what we have in this system. Asset management, I mean, all of you are doing asset management on some level, whether you're writing it down or just going out and taking care of something as it breaks or falls apart. It's just the manner in which you're managing it. So if you have better information, you're going to be able to make better decisions, better use of the funds that your city has put aside to be able to run that utility. I'm going to talk a lot about accuracy today. There's several options. There's about 100 different ways to do GIS so that you can use it for asset management. But what it all comes down to is if you do not have an accurate location on that point on the earth and an inventory of what that point is made up of and all the information you can associate to it, you cannot make an accurate decision on that. I always like to put this up here just to get people to think. What do you think of when you think of GIS? I hear GeoMoose up here a lot, an open source program that people have used. Obviously ESRI, they're upwards of 95% of the market on GIS, so I know you've heard that name. The ESRI reps are real good about taking care of the local government crews in Minnesota. ESRI has been very good at marketing that GIS is for everyone. What they haven't done is explain how it can apply to everyone. So everyone will have people say all the time, oh, we're going to get a GPS unit, go out and we'll put in our ESRI software. Well, there's a process to that. You want to make sure that you're doing it in the correct manner that you can get that information. Garmin units. We have a Lake County down in Missouri, about 65,000 address points in this lake community. And they called us one day and said, we want to get a Trimble unit to do address points. And address points aren't a big deal. You don't have to have perfect accuracy on them. And we gave them some recommendations, and they thought, no, we don't want to spend that much money. We're going to go buy a $100 Garmin and do it. And after they recorded all the points over and over again on all these locations, they found out there's no way to pull that information out of the Garmin. The Garmin's good for hunting and fishing. You guys, I mean, that's about it. The accuracy is not going to get you very far. Plus, you have no method to pull that information out. So, some of the resources with GIS, if you do have a good location, you're able to use that for asset management. There's all sorts of things that you can bring into that. From the written records that you can scan in, your manhole inspection reports, pictures, videos, Obviously, the maps, to be able to see everything spatially, any Excel reports, work orders. I mean, the sky's the limit that you can put in there, but if you can at least start with that good location, you can do everything off of that. We have cities a lot of times that, I was just talking to this gentleman up here, a city of about 400 people. Maybe it's not ideal for them to have 18 different databases linked to their GIS or their asset management system. It's a smaller system to manage, but they still need those accurate locations to manage it properly. We have people ask us all the time, how do you get there? How do you even start that conversation with your staff, with your manager, with your city council, utility board? Quite honestly, we've done over 100 utility GIS projects all over the Midwest, and we always stress planning. We've seen projects fail. We make a very good living off of redoing projects that were either done by a contractor and planning wasn't in place, or were done in-house and planning wasn't in place. We've seen successful programs that people have done on their own, as well as with other firms. So if you can figure out at the beginning what you're going to get at the end, and you start and end with good data, it's going to be successful. Like I mentioned, we've redone a lot of projects. We redid a project here a while back that they had spent money having their engineering firm do the locates and convert some things in another GIS firm work together. And at the end of the day, when the utility guys realized how far off everything was, the system just sat on the shelf. 2 years later, they brought us in to do it. They paid less for us to do it accurately than they did the first time to have it done incorrectly. So it's very important. I'll kind of talk about that a little later. Is what are you comparing to when you go out? If you do decide to use an outside contractor and you look at company X versus company Y, make sure you're comparing exactly what it is they're doing for you. I bring up engineering firms. I know there's a lot of people in the state with engineering firms that do good GIS and some that don't do as good GIS. My recommendation with that is you need to remember a couple things. We see engineers all the time that they want their cities to have a good GIS system so that they can work with it, so they can make a difference with it. We see some engineers that want to hurry up and get that GIS system so they can do the engineering work, because that's the larger product that they're going to sell you to be able to make revenue. So just be careful when you are working with those individuals that, like any firm, you want to make sure that their goals are to take the best care of you. So, like I mentioned, the workshop planning, that's a good place to start. Geodatabase is just a file format that everything's stored in an ESRI environment. Basically, it's just like having all your maps and all your databases and all your pictures and everything in one folder, nice and neat, so it can be portable and moved around. This is important even if you just want a paper resource, or if you're moving to a software program in another environment, because it gives you a starting point to go back to. A lot of times the best thing to do is sit down and get all the people in the room that need to discuss what you need out of your asset management and what you need out of your GIS. Maybe you want to keep track of hydrant leaks, or hydrant flushing or water main breaks, and you aren't doing that now, but down the road you want to do it. Those are some considerations. What are you keeping track of now? Do you want to keep track of work orders? Sometimes it's a conversation that gets a little uncomfortable because everyone will be in the room talking about their own workflow, their own responsibilities. At the end of the day, you don't want to be pointing fingers at staff or a manager assuming that you're doing something and no one's really talked about how that's going to affect your workflow. So I'd like to sit down and really talk about how you're going to plan this out in stages, whether you're going to have a contractor do it all and hand it off to you, or you're going to work through your own resources and spending the time and effort to go out and get that information yourself. Another good thing to do when you're planning that is to get everything mapped out conceptually. That way, if you have turnover, or God forbid, an employee leaves because of an emergency, you have this information. It's not all up in someone's head. We have people call us all the time. They'll say, I'm retiring, and I told them, don't call me because I'll be fishing. So you have to get all that information that's in that person's head, that institutional knowledge that when they started way back with your utility, the technology wasn't there, the funding wasn't there to get some of that information in a computer, and maybe the paper records have been destroyed over time. There's really good information in those employees. You've got to be able to grab hold of it and put it somewhere. It also helps not only if they were to leave suddenly, but with the new employees. As some of the younger groups come in to work for your cities, it helps with their learning curve. They can catch up very quickly, understand the system a little faster. And then if you are going to be moving this over to something computerized like a web-based GIS or an full-blown asset management system, you do want to make sure that what you need to do in the field is going to work in the computer system and vice versa. So those are very important things. There's lots of asset management systems you can spend lots and lots of money on to customize, to follow exactly how your city does business every day. There's some that it's a lot cheaper just to go and utilize what's already there. That's an out-of-the-box solution. So which is going to work better for your budget and how you guys do your work. There's just map development methods. Like I mentioned, you can do an outside contractor or in-house development. What I always caution people when they do in-house development, I mean, I sit here a while back in Iowa that they've been GPS locating, town of about 3,000. They've been GPS locating their sewer and water system for about 4 years. And he told me he hoped to be done in the next 4 or 5. That's 9 years. That's a huge change in technology. That's a huge change in the new development coming in, or the last time that you inspected a manhole, or did any valve exercising. So as they're GPSing, things are changing behind it. If you can get it down to a more reasonable time, you're capturing a snapshot in time when you go out and get those points and recording the information about, whether or not that has if you've seen any evidence of surcharge, or whether or not it's a pipe, the clay tile, or concrete or precast. So that information, it's better to be recorded in a shorter amount of time. Digitizing paper maps. You're never going to get this to be accurate. It's going to have, there's no coordinate system on a paper map. So it's not, we have a lot of people say, well, we've got these maps, can't you just put them in the computer? Yeah, we can. They're pictures in the computer. That's all they'll ever be. Converting CAD mapping. I'm sure a lot of you guys have CAD mapping, whether you have your own CAD system in-house. You've gotten something from the engineer at some point that's in CAD. CAD is schematic. It doesn't have the spatial reference on the face of the earth like GPS or GIS does. So it's good information, and you're never going to get away from CAD. And it's something engineers use. It's something that you want to be able to utilize for information. This is just something additional that you need to make sure you have those points. Field GPS collection, that's of course going out with the GPS unit and being able to locate that point on the earth. And then of course you can integrate whatever databases you want, base information from your county. There's some free services online. You can get everything pulled in that manner. I just want to spend a little time on the importance of GPS accuracy. I mentioned the Garmin earlier. Yeah, you can't really pull anything out of that. As you see in the middle, the little bit of yellow dot, that's a manhole in this curve in the road. The large yellow circle around it is what you get if you went out with a Garmin or your smartphone. If you stand on top of that manhole and you take a shot, it's going to bounce 30 feet over here or 30 feet over there. You keep taking them. It's going to bounce anywhere within that circle. So if you're out trying to find a valve or a cluster of valves, you're not going to find it very well. Also, like I mentioned, you can't pull any information out of it. So it's not a good tool for GPS data collection. On the mapping grade, that's going to be your your Trimble instruments, compass tools. I know in Frontier sell that and take care of you guys up here. Maybe a lot of you guys have that unit in your city. Those are going to be 2 foot. Some of the better ones are 4-inch accuracy. There's a wide range of Trimble products. So the higher price you pay, the more accurate it's going to be. The disadvantage with these first two is they don't have a vertical accuracy. So if you want to get an elevation on your sewer system, drop down so you can calculate out slope so your engineers can actually use this information, you're not able to get that with those units. The survey grade systems, those are obviously going to be a lot higher priced. We don't see a lot of cities invest in purchasing those items themselves. Some cities I've seen have an opportunity to rent them. Obviously, someone needs to be trained to operate that equipment. It's a little bit different than mapping grade. But that allows you to get within a centimeter of accuracy on wherever you take that shot, as well as centimeter accuracy on that elevation. So it's really the only thing that you can get that engineering grade accuracy on that your engineers can use, and you can really realize some cost savings there. One thing to note too on the mapping grade, and we see this a lot, people utilize this, okay, it's a 4-inch accuracy, or it's a 2 foot accuracy. One of the things a lot of people don't realize is it takes 2 minutes, somewhere around 2 minutes, to get that accuracy. Because what happens is you take that shot, it's pulling in everything from the satellite, and it's just refining down to that accuracy. So we have a lot of people walk up, shoot, walk up, you're going to get that accuracy, you didn't stay put long enough. I know our field crews, they've located hundreds of thousands of points all over the Midwest. They use survey grade mostly because it's faster. They can go out and get that satellite acquisition, they're not slowed down. So sometimes there's a misconception of, well, yeah, I can't afford maybe $40,000 to $50,000 to buy survey grade equipment. That's a lot of money. But it's probably going to cost me more too if I have a contractor do that versus having a contractor do mapping grade. A good contractor who has survey background, who can utilize that type of equipment, is faster and more efficient with it. So, I mean, it's actually more money if I was to go out with mapping grade and do work for our clients. Accuracy concerns. I know I'm kind of drilling this at you. In my opinion, it's the most important piece of your GIS system or anything that you're going to build asset management off of. You can see the red lines. This is a town outside of Des Moines, about 8,000 people. The red lines are what was located with mapping grade equipment. Excuse me. When we came back in with survey grade equipment, the green is where we found everything. You can see we're pretty close up here a little bit, but we're way off down here. So if an engineer's trying to do some sewer study or looking at things off the red lines, they're not going to be able to give you an accurate price or an accurate scope of what that project's going to be if you don't have better information. This is another example. This is actually CAD conversion. As I mentioned, when you convert CAD, a lot of it initially when it was developed was either not put in a coordinate system or put in the wrong coordinate system a lot of times. Some of the better CAD that we've seen come through our office is probably off around 30 feet. So normally our recommendation is that's good for overhead electric if it's close, but we rarely see stuff that's even close enough to utilize for electric. And if electric poles this big around, it's a huge deal if you're 4 or 5 feet off. But with a manhole or a water valve, that can be the difference of 4 or 5 hours in the cost of an excavation crew. So as you can see in the middle here, these blue lines, those are the survey grade points, that valve cluster. Before it was the red lines. There was no spatial reference when that came in from CAD, and this water crew started using this information, realized it was wrong, and they completely started. They weren't trusting it. So as soon as they stopped trusting it, as soon as your personnel stops using that, you've wasted all that money, and it's just going to sit there. What could go wrong? This is the difference. The blue is what was done. This is the town I mentioned earlier that they had a GIS group come in and do for them, a combination of CAD and mapping grade. One thing they didn't do is they didn't pull all the manholes. Well, we're pretty sure they didn't because they missed about 70 manholes. We're not sure how they missed 21 hydrants because they're usually brightly colored, but somehow they missed that many hydrants. Water valves, huge disparity on what they thought was there. Storm intakes, we're not sure if whoever worked with them really understood the storm system like they should have to know what they need to collect when they're out there. But when you go and you shoot the top of a manhole and you walk down the street and you see this manhole and you shoot it, you keep going. And, where's the next manhole? You look around and we're going to go around, drive around the corner here and see a manhole. But you go 2 blocks and you don't see a manhole. There should be a manhole somewhere. You pull every single lid, you're going to see where every single pipe goes. And every single pipe is going to lead you to another manhole. We did work in our hometown about 3 years ago. It's a town of about 10,000, Maryville, Missouri. And we were down, we knew we had one manhole. And the utility crew said, no, you've got all the manholes, there's no more manholes. And I'm like, you're missing one. And they're like, how do you know that we're missing one manhole? I'm like, well, we're standing at this one, and there's a line that goes that way. So they got out a push camera and pushed it down there, and it ended up being under an above ground pool in someone's backyard. Years ago, the owner had put that in and hadn't kept track of it. They were nice enough not to make them move the pool. But and that's another concern too. Sometimes people say, well, what if we don't want to tear up our roads? The GPS, maybe this is buried down and we're just not going to tear this road up. And we've had that deal. We caution you if you have a large amount buried, at some point you're going to have to get some of that unburied. In the case of the one under the pool, we used some geometry to get that drawn in. One thing too I caution you is if you don't use GPS or you use a combination of survey or mapping grade GPS, one thing you want to make sure is to put some notation in your system that says this is a survey grade point, this is a mapping point, this is a guessed point, because as soon as you put it on a map it becomes gospel. Likewise with water, when we locate water, we never want to guess. You can't dig up the whole water system and write everything down, it's just not possible. But if there's ever a question with staff of whether it's a 4-inch or a 6-inch, we just put unknown, because if you put it's a 4-inch, the next thing you know, the utility guy somewhere is ordering a valve for that 4-inch pipe, and then they're mad because it's not 4-inch. So you make sure you have good, accurate information and you're not just guessing in there. It's just beyond location. When you are building a system for asset management, you're managing your assets, you have to have that information. That's another reason. When you're GPS in a sewer system, you pull the manhole it. You can record. We've recorded upwards of 50 things on one manhole, which is a lot. You know, pipe size, pipe type, like I mentioned earlier, signs of infiltration, little things like, is it buried? How deep is it buried? Is it stacked? How many of you could say right now where and how many manholes you have in your town that are buried? Probably not very many. But with GIS system can tell you where they are, how deep they're buried, and you know right away how many risers you need to order, how high each riser needs to be. You can calculate very good for a CIP plan or future planning to say, we're going to raise this many each year. So there's not a lot of field work involved in having to go out there and find it. Once you've got that information and you're maintaining it, it can really start working for you. This is just an example of a lot of the information that can be put or pulled in there. And of course, one thing we caution too is if you are going to record 50 things about a manhole, why are you recording about a manhole? Because are you going to maintain it? That's a lot of things to maintain. Maybe it's something your engineer wants for a study too. So as you're planning through this, if you have projects that you're looking for, you want to make sure the engineer weighs in to let you know if they are working on a sewer study, well, we would need this information. So before you go out in the field, people will know, or the engineers will know what they can derive from the information they're collecting. This is just an example, like I mentioned, of some of the attributes that can be collected on the system. It doesn't seem like a big thing, but just example of condition rating, we normally will go off of a 5-point condition rating system. So you can go in very quickly and say, show me all of my class 5 manholes. And it shows you all the manholes that have been graded poorly in the system. And maybe that's something that you send to your engineer or you talk to city council and you're able to quickly identify what needs done with those manholes and where the bad parts of your system are. On GIS data creation and considerations, once you have all that GPS data, you've got all these points, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to use it? The one thing I want to make sure all people do is it's portable and expandable, because your GIS is going to continue to be a living thing in your organization. Your asset management system is going to continue to be a living thing. So can it be moved with another company if we decide we don't like this or something new and better comes out and you want to work with a different contractor? What format is it in? Is it legacy to where that one company has a stronghold on you to where you're not able to go and work with someone else without rebuilding the entire thing? And expandability, how much can we add to this? Because as you get a handle on getting those locations, you start to build it. It never fails. People get a web-based system or a full-blown asset management system, and the wheels start turning in the city. They're like, oh, well, we can do this, or we can do this. So as you get more familiar with that, you want to have the capabilities to be able to add to it. Maintenance. What's it going to cost you in maintenance? Are you done once you've spent money either having your staff do it or contractor come in? How much are you going to be forking out, and what are you spending your money for? A lot of people say, well, once you GPS a town, you're not done. There might be a development coming on the southwest side of town. And how do we get that information in? You want to make sure that you have some things in place to pull that into your system very quickly. We have some cities, obviously, if you've done it yourself, you're going to have a unit. You go back out there and do it. We have a lot of cities, if they have survey grade points, they want to continue to have survey grade points on their new developments. They will put it in the contract with their engineer. When you go out and put in these manholes or these extra water valves, that they will provide you with those survey grade points and you can plug into the system seamlessly. We also have some people that they'll just hire a contractor or a local surveyor to go out and get that information for you. If you have something that's hosted, you're most likely going to have a hosting fee every month. to pay to a software company to maintain that? What type of support are they giving you with that? Is it cheaper or more expensive versus having a site license on multiple computers that need to be accessed? Can your engineer use this? One thing I didn't mention on the CAD converting is when you convert that over, a lot of times things don't snap together. They don't snap together if you don't have a manhole meet a pipe. Your engineer can't model anything off of that. So there's a huge cost savings if you have good, accurate information and you go to do a sewer study or water modeling project, or if you go to do some videoing or jetting with contractors. One thing I always tell people, because we do the same thing, the better information we have, the higher the price we can make. So if we walk in and say, well, we don't have any maps, we in some manner have to account for the fact that we're not sure how much extra time we're going to be putting into that job. If you have no good data and you want a guy to give you a quote on sewer video, he's going to build that in there somewhere because he has to account for the fact that his crews may be doing more work than what it appears to be before they get into it. So this is a huge cost savings. We have some cities that have paid for it in the first year or two just because of the information that they've been able to pull out of it. My best example is that we had a town of about 12,000 that they have an electric system in theirs. They had no idea what was up on their electric poles as far as pole attachments, other companies putting things on there, like phone companies. And so they had us do their project and realized that they paid for the system in about 4 or 5 months with the money that they weren't charging people because they lost track of what other companies had on their poles. So justified the project very quickly. Workflow in your organization, I mentioned this earlier. If you have a guy going out and doing manhole inspections or hydrant flushing, how does that information get back into your asset management system? What's the process? Are we writing it on a paper, taking an iPad out into the field? Once it comes back in, whose responsibility is it for it to translate over to another program if we're using it? And then, like I mentioned, comparing apples to apples. We have people have told us before we walk into places and they said, well, your price is higher than the Acme company that came in and gave us price. You get to talking to them, well, that's because they're converting your CAD. If I was converting your CAD, my price would be very cheap too. So you really need to see what is that contractor doing for you and what are they not doing for you. Or if you're doing it in-house, what are you sacrificing by doing it in-house as far as your resources are concerned. This is just an example of how you can use that sewer video data for asset management. You have spatial, good location data of where things are. This was used in a council meeting here a while back. This is a town of about 25,000. They were lucky enough to have a combined sewer system, and they had to get it separated. And so we went in and located all of the sewer and the storm, and then this information was then transferred over into web-based solution. And then the sewer camera companies came in and they did like $1.2 million with the sewer video. There was a lot of video. All of that video was plugged into the GIS system and extracted all the way down to the laterals. So as your groups are going out, you have a sewer camera video contractor going out, most of the time, there's a program that they're using that pulls in and says factory tap 2 o'clock. That information can be extracted in a GIS format to push out to an asset management system to show where are all my laterals at, how far up the line are they, so you can quickly see a very good depiction of your system. From here, they're able to look at everything and show the council where all these problems are at in the city, so they can figure out what clear accounts we need to tackle first. This is just another example of the asset management option. The green is the section, this was as the city was being videoed. Most cities don't video their entire town all at once, unless a smaller community. They might video sections and they may jet or clean certain sections at a time. These type of systems can sit there and tell you which year you did which section of town, or this section was done by this company or this contractor if you use multiple contractors. I visited with the vendor with the Duke's root control. I don't know if any of you guys visited with them or used Duke's system, but they come in and help get the roots out of the sewer systems, and there is a program that someone created that can basically show, based on the tree, as it grows in its life cycle, the species, how large the canopy is going to be and how big the root system is going to get. So in his case, one of the first things he does when he goes in and talks to the city to try and figure out, how much would it cost, where do we need to start, how much should we do, is he pulls up and he can look and see that where the trees are lying in the city and say, well, probably this section over here, because where those sewer lines are, if you have a system like this in relationship to your trees, you can even measure off of it and see how far away from the base of that tree, if someone's planted something new, and where your sewer system's at. Our crews always get scared when they go into places that say Tree City USA, because it slows us down a little bit, but he gets all excited when he goes in and says Tree City USA, because he knows there's probably roots in the sewer systems. This is an example too, this video player. This is something that can be integrated into asset management. If you have those good points, is you can tie that back to that location. So you click on that manhole, it pops up, you can use the video data. Before, a lot of people got the video data, what did they do with it? It sat on a shelf. They tried to pull something out somewhere that the engineer probably pulled out to say, oh, here's a bad one, here's where it's at in town. It's a lot of effort. You can push it out to here, you can pull it up, you can pull up full currency if you do it several years down the road again. And here's another example. This is just the smoke testing data. Excuse me. This is just how it looks out throughout the town. You're able to actually see where everything was done and the reports that were given based on that data. And then just bringing all the information together. I mentioned at the beginning ESRI, that's what our firm builds everything off of. The nice thing about that is it's extendable and it's portable. Like I said, it's such a large percentage of the market. You guys know familiarity with it already. If you're not doing something in ESRI, probably your other choices are something like a GeoMoose that's open source, and there's several open source things. Microsoft MapPoint has something too. The disadvantage with those type of systems are if you have something in a Microsoft MapPoint and you decide to go to another platform or to work with an engineer who has a familiarity with ESRI, is you're not going to be able to port that over very easily. You're going to have to rebuild some things. So that's the nice thing about ESRI is as you go from contractor to contractor, you work with another organization to share information, or you're pulling down some state data. And ESRI is going to be that leading format that you're going to be able to get the most bang for your buck if you have it in a geodatabase ESRI format. Like I mentioned, open source and freeware option. The bad thing about those things are if it breaks, nobody has to fix it. When I say you get what you pay for, it may be seem like, oh, we'll just go ahead and get started on this open source and just start putting points in here. But even if you're putting the most accurate point in, as that gets bigger and harder to manage or it breaks, how are you going to get it over into another format you can use without rebuilding it? And then just asset management software. There's a lot of good asset management softwares out there that are geared for your Minneapolises or Chicago's, your Kansas Cities. So a lot of those require one staff person. Most people in the room aren't going to have one staff person just to run an asset management software. They have 3, 4 guys on their crew that all need to be able to access that information. They don't have time to sit in front of a computer all day. You guys have things to do. So you want to make sure that what you're looking at fits the size of your town and your needs. You guys have any questions?